Hi everybody, this is Thero. You can find me on the Marvel Champions Discord, answering rules questions, or doing the Card Text podcast with Bob and Scott, where we explore various intricacies of the rules, or here on YouTube with my Marvel Champions playthrough videos, where I've been going through all the scenarios in a progression fashion, and then playing various other things since then, including some What If videos, which is this is a continuation of the What If series for Galaxy's Most Wanted. I'm currently playing through the Mutant Genesis scenarios with the new X-Men heroes, but I'm going to do that just one a week on Tuesdays, so you can check those out if you're interested. But over here in the What If Galaxy's Most Wanted, we're salvaged line of videos. We played through Drang. We tried to infiltrate the museum a couple times, and then tried to escape the museum. And although the escape the museum scenario went terribly, I'm not going to try and replay it until I win. I'm just going to leave it there for now. I might revisit it. I'm planning on trying this whole thing possibly as a campaign, although we'll see how that goes. And I could revisit it then. I might revisit it before then just to tweak it out, or to try it with a hero that's better than Pre-Con Star-Lord. I haven't really quite nailed down exactly what I want to do with that, or how that should go. But because I don't know what to do with that, and I do know what to do with Nebula, I'm just going to move on to Nebula and then play Ronin, and then maybe revisit Escape the Museum after that. So so let's get started with Nebula. So for the Nebula scenario, Nebula is a pretty tough villain. So she's a tough scenario, and a lot of it comes down to her surge effect, right? So Nebula, as printed, has the first time you reveal a technique upgrade, each technique attachment each turn, it gains surge. And then she has cards that reveal technique attachments. Search her deck for technique attachments and reveal them, plowing through the deck for those. Then she has her pirates, and she has cards that discard from her deck until they reach a pirate. And this all just comes together to make for some really terrible turns where you can chunk through half the deck, and she ends up with 2 or 3 technique attachments. And now the technique attachments are interesting in that on standard they just all fall off, which I find standard Nebula to be not too bad because of that. Like even if she gets 5 attachments, they just all trigger once and then they go away. But on expert difficulty, in stage 2, she has the attachments and they only go away one at a time. And what can happen is you can get in a situation where she has 3 attachments on her and they all activate. You discard a card, you take a damage, you become stunned, and then you can get rid of one of those effects. So then you discard a card because that's the worst one. Then she attacks you again, and now you're already stunned, so she gets an extra boost card, and then you're taking another damage, and then finally you can discard her stunned ability. But then she gets dealt another technique, but then that's 2 attacks. Next turn she gets another technique, and it just builds, and it surges into another technique, or into one of her many cards that reveals another technique. And what happens is she just kind of builds up this technique, and when that happens, when she has a critical mass of techniques, then you can never get rid of all of them, and it's tough. So when I was considering how to rework Nebula, I mean, the techniques were like the obvious thing to rework, right? And the obvious thing to do with them, I don't know, the most obvious thing that I could think to do with them was to make a technique deck. In the same vein as Red Skull's. Red Skull wants to get a side scheme every turn, so you give him a side scheme deck. Nebula wants to get a technique every turn. I think that's why they have Surge, because they're kind of these non-encounter cards, and she needs them. Like in games where she doesn't get techniques, she's super easy, and in games where she gets them all the time, she's incredibly hard. And that swing is just annoying. You never know how hard Nebula is going to be. And so instead of having her sometimes have tons of techniques and sometimes have no techniques, if we just set them all aside at the start of the game, we take each technique attachment out of her encounter deck. I don't think I worded this correctly. And shuffle it into the technique deck. So here they are. These are all of her techniques. They make an 8-card deck. And then we modify Nebula. And what I decided to do with Nebula was that she would get her techniques as boost cards, because the way they normally come out in the game is they can come out as boost cards or they come out as encounter cards that surge. So instead of ever having them come out as encounter cards, they just come out as boost cards most of the time. And that lets them then resolve their special ability when they come out as a boost. Then she'll resolve their special ability and discard them. So on stage 1 Nebula, I made it much like regular stage 1 Nebula in that she resolves the techniques and then discards all of them. And I also had her, if she does not have an attachment, she gets her boost card from the technique deck instead of the encounter deck. This makes stage 1 Nebula very manageable. Maybe too manageable. I'm not sure if this is too easy. I don't play standard a lot. I don't have any standard videos, any videos where I play standard difficulty, so that's, that's just not, it's not the level that I engage the game at. And there's nothing wrong with standard. If you like playing on standard, that's fine. That's cool for you. It's just not, it's not what I enjoy playing, and so I don't do it very much, and I have a real hard time judging what's appropriate difficulty for standard. I mean, you may have noticed I have kind of a hard time judging what's appropriate difficulty. Anyways, that's why some of the previous scenarios didn't go so well. But I made it easy. Maybe not too easy. Maybe it is too easy. If it is, you could take one of the modifications for stage 2. Personally, I would probably make her not discard all attachments and instead only discard one attachment if I were going to make her harder, versus dealing the technique as an additional boost. But anyways, as we go to expert difficulty, as we go to stage 2, her forced interrupt changes. When Nebula activates against you, you resolve the special ability on each technique attachment in play. That part's always the same. Then you choose and discard one of the attachments, so they stick around. If she gets a bunch of attachments, it is bad. And I like that part of her, especially because if you try and stun lock Nebula, it can kind of backfire on you, because then suddenly, by the time she activates, she's got multiple techniques, and then she uses them all over and over again. And since one of the techniques gives her stalwart, or 3 of them give her stalwart. 2 of them give her stalwart. I don't know. However many give her stalwart. It's not, you can't lock her down 100%. Anyways, that's that part. And then if no such attachments were in play, deal her an additional boost card from the technique deck. So if she does not have an attachment, she gets a boost from the technique along with her regular boost. If she has attachments, she resolves them and then discards them. So she will have periods of time where she has no techniques and periods of time where she has one technique. If this was the only way she got techniques, she would never get more than one, and it would be kind of cyclical, except for if she activates multiple times. However, a lot of her cards give her additional techniques, so I'll go over those in a sec. Finally, she goes to stage 3, and when she's in stage 3, I threw in a when revealed where she just reveals top technique, so she gets an extra technique immediately. And then when she activates against you, you resolve special ability, choosing to discard one of the attachments. If no attachments remain in play, deal her an additional boost from the technique deck. So she resolves specials before she attacks, and then if she used up her last technique, she immediately gets another one. So once she gets stage 3, she can be pretty tough. I did get rid of the remove your top card from the game because that takes up a lot of space, and there's not really a whole lot of space here. That's really why I got rid of it. I don't mind it. It's kind of a negative experience, but whatever. She has the Space Pirates. They do the same thing. Alright, so that's what happens here. She shuffles each technique into the technique deck. Then, when revealed, we reveal the top card of the technique deck, which just attaches it to Nebula. No big deal. I don't know if I shuffled these. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Alright, so she has Weapon Mastery to start us off with. Oh, I didn't mention, for contents, you have Nebula, and she gets 3 modular encounter sets: the Space Pirates, Power Stone, and Ship Command. You may have noticed this is a completely different main scheme. So Ship Command is optional now, as I've done with other scenarios. Ship command becomes optional. And since ship command is optional, her scheme makes no sense. Her scheme is pretty terrible anyways because of the whole, like, you have to exhaust the mono and spend resources to remove counters so that her threat doesn't go up too fast because it's always constantly going up. You know, all that fun stuff. But so we've cleared all of that away. If you've watched any of my previous videos on this, everything uses ship command. So I've talked about the interceptor once or twice because it came up once, and I've been having trouble with the interceptor. So this is a little bit of a history, but when I first redid Nebula, because she was one of the first Galaxy's Most Wanted scenarios that I wanted to house rule and make interesting, I pulled out the techniques as I've done here. I basically came up with her forced interrupt. That's been pretty standard, but she used to have her ship. I didn't change that part of the scenario immediately. What I did do was I changed how she interacts with it. So I've tried a few variants on that. I had it only gain evasion counters when she has the Power Stone. I've had it only add threat when she has the Power Stone. Kind of the idea was I really integrated her more into the story, which is certainly a way that you can modify Nebula. If you like Galaxy's Most Wanted, mostly otherwise, I think have that version of Nebula up on my Google Drive. I've shared it before, so I'll make sure that that's linked in the comments here. But anyways, that one just has a different interaction with her ship. It just tries to make that tax less oppressive, make it more interesting, tug of war over the Power Stone. But when I was redoing all of Galaxy's Most Wanted, of course, I factored out ship command from everything, so nobody's dependent on ship command. And that meant I wanted an interceptor that was more universally useful. One thing that I had done at some point in all of my changes for Nebula was I had made the interceptor, or the Nebula ship, into something that helped her reduce damage. I thought reducing damage was an interesting interaction with the Power Stone because now it makes it harder to grab the Power Stone because she reduces damage, and so the way to clear off the counters was to damage her. So it kind of encouraged attacking Nebula to clear off the counters, which would reduce the damage and then lose counters. And so then, instead of being attacks, it was just kind of extra ablative health. It was just some extra health that Nebula had that you had to deal with because it was on her ship. And it was fine. It worked. But with that's kind of where this concept for the interceptor came from, was within that damage reduction idea. And I have had trouble figuring out a way to make the interceptor interesting compared to the other ships. And I think I finally hit on something that I like. And so the way that this works now is she gets 1 per player evasion counters. It's just because villain health scales, so this feels like it needs to scale by player count. And when you attack her or any other enemy, so the problem with having just damage reduction on the villain with no express reason to attack the villain, I mean, there's a little bit of a reason because of the Power Stone modular, but that's also optional. And Nebula just doesn't demand being attacked. So since you could not attack the villain for a long time and then burst him down, and so then the evasion counters are just like this extra amount that you have to burst down, or you can just kind of ping them off over time. It's kind of the risky business issue. I just made it trigger on any enemy. So when any enemy would take damage. So now it's something you have to deal with because you want to deal with minions. If you don't want minions to be too hard, you're going to need to hit Nebula some to keep this under control. Otherwise, whenever a minion comes out, you're going to have to clear this off to be able to clear the minion. Except for what I finally hit on that I liked is that, so that's half of this. Instead of only being villain damage, it's any enemy. And the second thing I like is that I was using the mono to prevent the evasion counters. And I realized that what I wanted to do was I wanted to use the mono to let you remove evasion counters without, and trying to figure out how to make that work, I thought, what if the mono just lets you bypass the evasion counters? So you still remove them, but you can exhaust the mono so that it doesn't reduce your damage. And that I really like. So now the Milano has a purpose in this scenario, has an interesting purpose where you might want it to be ready, but of course it could get exhausted. It's a very different interaction with the Milano than the other ships have, which I really like, because most of the other ships you're using the Milano to just prevent them from doing bad things, but here you're kind of using the Milano to make the bad thing different. It works best if you have big attacks, which is kind of a cool interaction that I always like to have available, where you can use a big attack to knock off tons of evasion counters and exhaust the Milano to have it not reduce your damage, which is cool. If you're doing a lot of ping attacks, then this probably isn't as big of a deal anyways, because you're probably pinging off the evasion counters pretty consistently. So yeah, that's the idea with the Interceptor. This will be a chance to test that out and see how it works. I did not get a chance to test that out. I have otherwise tested Nebula a few times in different configurations, and I've tested this particular one just without a ship command. I used a different modular set. So still with Space Pirates, still had the Power Stone modular, just not ship command because I didn't have ship command with me when I was playing. So that's that part. So as noted, it's factored out, so that means that I changed the art for her main scheme and made her main scheme not about a ship, and I had to write up my own flavor text, which is terrible, I'm sure, but you know, whatever. I had to have something on this. It was just really boring. All right, so let's talk about her treacheries real quick. So she has her 3 treacheries and her side scheme, and they just all needed at least reworded. So lethal intent's basically the same. It just reveals a technique, but instead of searching the deck for a technique, since she has a technique deck that's separate, it just reveals the top card of the technique deck. Easy peasy. Alright, combat ready. So combat ready used to search for a technique and then execute its special ability. And one thing I've noticed is that Nebula is very susceptible to being just bursted down. That's just a fact of Nebula. So having a heal card in her deck actually is nice. It fits thematically with what's going on with her doing cybernetic upgrades, and the techniques are kind of this weird combination of cybernetic upgrades and skills, and so anyways, this lets her heal 3 damage, and she gets a face down boost card from the technique deck. So it still reveals a technique and executes the special, just doesn't do it immediately. It puts it off for a second. Combat protocols. So barrel roll no longer applies, so I wanted to make up something new, so I made up a new card and gave it some new art. So it's not all about the ship, since player without the ship. Insight 1, no surge, just reveals the top card of the technique deck and revolves its special ability. So just more interaction with the techniques, and this time it does it immediately, because all else it does is adds 1 threat. And then finally there's Ruthless, which I spent some time thinking about this, and I realized that one thing that's very interesting about her using boost cards from her techniques is that the boost cards from her techniques don't have boost icons. And as I thought about that, I guess I did this after I played her last time, but anyways, as I thought about that, I realized one cool thing could be for her second stage of the scheme to have an amplify icon. Increases all of her boost by 1, which is really interesting because she gets multiple boost cards regularly. That's a cool interaction. It means you want to keep her on stage 1, but when you go to stage 2, it's not a huge deal. Like, boost icons aren't the worst. Amplify icon's not awful. It's not like Risky Business with its hazard icon on stage 2. So I think it should be fine. And then I kind of did the same thing with Ruthless. So Ruthless is symbiotic strength from Venom, where she pulls you out of alter ego and attacks you, which is good because it's a Power Stone interaction from within the campaign aspect, or within the kind of standard setup. She's going to fight with you over the Power Stone. This is a way for her to fight you over the Power Stone. She now has 4 cards that will attack you in alter ego if you have the Power Stone. So you have to be, you can't just hide, which is a definite thing that the Power Stone lets you do. And then the other thing is, when you're hero mode, she attacks you, and each boost card turned face up gets +1 boost icon. So if she doesn't currently have technique, she's attacking you with +2. If she does have a technique, she's attacking you with +1. but then you have to suffer the technique effect. So I thought that was an interesting way to have having her interact. So she has 6 cards in here that'll give her an extra technique, and 1 card in her deck that gives her an extra attack, plus all the other extra attacks from standard and all that. So, okay, that's Nebula. Fighting Nebula, we're going to use Drax. This version of Nebula is, I mean, like, I can't overstate how much easier she is than regular Nebula. She's much easier. She's fair, and I think Drax can take her. So hence, we're going to fight her with Drax. We're going to fight her with Drax using a protection deck that's somewhat like his Pre-Con. We include Shake It Off because it should be in Drax. I went ahead and pulled Booster Boots because he has, like, what is it? Athletic Conditioning, which is awful, and no one should ever have athletic conditioning. So Booster Boots instead. And this is part of the whole, hey, this is not the deck that he has, and it requires reprinting cards so that they don't reprint, and you can't build this with the other Pre-Cons. But it's in the vein of the regular Pre-Cons. I also have Power of Protection and Med Team because Med Team plus Martyr or Mantis is great. I did leave him with his 3 allies that he has, which includes Moondragon. So there's that. If I were going to really redo more things than just the Galaxy's Most Wanted scenarios and alternate Pre-Cons, Moondragon would be getting an edit because that's such a terrible card. Anyways, that's it. Drax gets a 6-card hand, and it's, wow, that's a bad hand. Oh my gosh. Why? Deck, why are you doing this to me? Alright, so Nebula's all set up. We're going to discard all 6 of these cards, which is fine because we're looking for Dwight Mastery anyways. Hopefully we'll draw it. Oh, look at that, Dwight and Booster Boots. Ha ha ha. Hard Knocks doesn't let us do anything, but that's fine. Alright, Drax goes hero mode. We spend, which one? Payback. Spend Payback to play Dwight Mastery. Drax is going to attack Nebula for, nah, I don't know. Do I want to? Let's see, I'm going to play Booster Boots. So the thing is, I would like to kind of attack Nebula to draw a card. That would let me play Hard Knocks, which would let me get the Power Stone. Actually, I guess I want to do that first, right? So if I spend 1, 2, 3 to play Hard Knocks, I can deal 4 damage to an enemy. 1, 2, 3, 4, which does 1 damage to me, but I get a Power Stone out of it, which is great. So now I could attack for 2 in order to play Booster Boots, which would potentially be quite helpful, but I would take a damage, and that's a little bit annoying. Alternatively, I could thwart for 2. I think I'm going to attack for 2. Take that damage and draw a card. And then I will... So... I could spend Fight Me Coward. She's currently attacking for 2. That would knock off the Combat Mastery. I think I'm not going to, because chances are she'd take the Power Stone back, and that would be annoying. So I think we're just going to stick with this. So I play Booster Boots. I don't ready. I am going to have to deal with that main scheme at some point. 1 threat. I really hope she doesn't scheme, because I'm not the best at this. But I have Intimidation, which is great. Okay, 1 threat. Nebula attacks me. She gets a single boost card. I take a single damage. This gets discarded to the Technique discard pile. So I didn't write all this up. This says C insert, which obviously the insert doesn't exist. I think I may have mentioned that during the museum, but you know, this is basically how it goes. It's its own deck. It has its own discard pile. So I think what I want to do is probably hold Leading Blow, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and subdue her. That will reduce her attack by 3. and that means I can hold the Power Stone. So she deals 4 damage. I'll use Booster Boots and discard a card. Okay, it's Booster Boots. Great. Glad to get that card out of there. I get a single encounter card. I was caught off guard, which means I'm going to lose Booster Boots, which is, I'll be honest, that was part of the reason that I played Booster Boots and thought I should play Booster Boots because I don't want to get caught off guard and lose Dwight-Thief Mastery. I did not say that out loud. If I had, I would have seemed prescient. That would have been great. But hey, works out. All right. Now, I do have an issue in that I only attack for 2. Because I've only been attacked once. No, I attacked for 3. And this is equal to my attack. So I think I could probably Leading Blow. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to Leading Blow to attack her. And I reduce my damage by 2, but I still draw a card with Dwight-Thief Mastery. And I ready. And I hit her for 3 minus 2 is 1. So I deal damage, therefore I readied. Okay, I would love to play my knife, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. Intimidation is still really good. So I think we're going to just play Intimidation. I don't know. I could play my knife. I could play my knife and I could just thwart for 2. I mean, I forgot she had this. I forgot I had the Milano. Oh my goodness. I forgot everything. I forgot I had the Milano in turn 1. I didn't have to do that. I feel dumb. Alright. Well, I had to do that because of Leading Blow. Because I only did 1 damage. But I cleared that off and dealt the damage anyways. That's annoying though, because I would really like to play Drax's knife. Oh, the thing is I can attack. See, so if I attack, then I draw a card. Then I could hold Drax's knife. Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to attack for 3 damage and draw a card. Oh, and we got Fight Me, Coward. Now that's interesting. Because I could let her attack me. I still think it's not worth it today. So we're going to play Intimidation, because that removes 3 threat. And we're going to hold my knife. And seems good. 4 cards. Ooh, shake it off. Excellent. 1 threat. So Nebula attacks me. She gets an extra boost card from here. This has 1 on it currently. So here's a question is, do I want to defend this? I'm going to say no. I can always punch her and get it back. So she does 1, 2. Ouch. 3, 4, 5 damage. And places 1 threat on the main scheme. And steals the Power Stone. Okay, I get a single encounter card. It's Advance, which is not ideal, especially when she has that. She schemes for 2 plus a boost. Oh, sorry, I forgot to play Shake It Off. I'm not going to be able to play that med team anyways. I'm tough. Alright. So she schemes. Oh, whoops. Apparently I pulled that from there. She schemes for 3 anyways. 1, 2, 3. She completed her main scheme because I drew Advance. She gets a face down boost card from this technique deck. And now she has +1 boost icon all the time. I do have 2 counters though. So, I'm going to punch her. I'm going to use the Milano to play my knife. And then I'm going to punch her for 1, 2, 3, 4. -1. 3. Steal the Power Stone back. Draw a card. It's Mantis. And I don't have any resources. So that's annoying, actually. It's really annoying. This is going to hurt a lot. Oh, no, I have tough. It's not going to hurt at all. I'm going to discard 2 Stubborn to die. I like it, but I would really like to play Mantis. I would love to see a double resource. I do believe I haven't seen one this whole game. No, I saw energy. That's right. I forgot I used energy. So that's interesting because I could use deflection. Alright, 1 threat. This goes up by 1. And she attacks me. She does not currently have a technique, so she gets an extra technique card too. So, yep. That's how this works. So she hits me for 1, 2, 3, an additional boost card from the technique deck. Wow! She's going to have all her techniques. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All hits my tough status. Then, after the activation, we activate this special. So she gets a threat, which could win her the game there. I am stunned, which is really bad. And I take a damage, which is unfortunate. Okay, single encounter card. She gets a face down boost card from this. It's gotta be a criminal. That guy's not a criminal. He's just a ship operations guy. Oh, of course it's the pirate commander. Who else would it be? She hits me for 2 and removes my top card from the game. It's Gamora. Oh, Gamora. Well, that was terrible. That was really terrible. I'm at least up to 3 counters. Yeah, it's kind of hard to get worse than this, actually. Darn. I think I may have just lost the game. That advance killed me. But there's just not much I can do here. Right, I can thwart for a bunch, but this is, she's going to scheme for so much. Especially with the pirate commander out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7. Oh, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7 automatic scheme. Right? If I thwart it to 0 and these 2 cards add together to have 2 total boost, I lose. I'm stunned, so I can't attack anything. So even though I could pretty much kill this pirate commander, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I could kill the pirate commander in 1 hit, but I'm stunned with no ready. So that doesn't work. I can't draw cards because I can't attack. So I guess what we do, maybe hold deflection actually. Spend 2 to play Mantis. Use Mantis to heal me 3. And I'm going to clear my stun status because, no, shoot. I don't know. I'm going to get stunned again because of evasive maneuvering. That also has made her stalwart, and she can't take more than 5 damage, and she has retaliate 1. Nebula. that was just a crazy stacking of stuff that has not happened to me before on this. So, you know, I mean, it's a thing that can still happen, and the big difference is that it doesn't happen with near the frequency that happens with regular nebula. And also, it's kind of a one-time thing. Like, it's pretty much not going to happen again. Pretty crazy, though. Alright, I thwarted for 2. Let's see what we get. Nice. Alright, Nebula attacks me for tons and tons. I'm just going to take it. I'm going to deflect it, so that's my life. This has 2. So she hits me. So first I take a damage. She adds a threat. And she gets an extra boost card. That goes away. Alright, so she hits me for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 damage she hits me for. Huh. That's crazy. That is crazy. I mean, I could jump it. I could have jumped it with Mantis, just because kind of have to at some point. But that's it. I'm dead. Just thinking through with what might need to happen. Like, this was by far the craziest game with Nebula that I've had. Admittedly, I guess, you know, this is one of those things where I've mostly played it 2-player. Probably only played it 2-player. I think this is my first solo game, and solo is different. Always so different. And that first scheme, of course, it always goes away to an advance. There's really nothing you can do about that. Getting an advance on turn 2 is going to kill a game. Why'd I get advance the same turn I get Cutthroat Ambition? So that she's adding extra threat. I mean, yeah, it's a confluence of events. You can normally hold her on stage 1 unless you go alter ego. I mean, seriously, she went from 0 to 6 while I was in hero form. That's just not something that normally happens. So, you know, that's gonna lose you games. I did not think about this Amplify Icon comboing with the pirates, the pirate boosts. I did not even consider that. So that's a thing that happens with a permanent Amplify Icon. I still think it's an interesting overall sequence, but might be too much. Maybe I pushed her too hard. She was really easy. Like, obviously you guys don't see all those playtests that I've done with her, but like, we've just crushed her so many times. I thought I'd found the right balance. I feel like it was the right balance for 2 players, but maybe it's not for Drax Protection with the Pre-Con. I mean, you know, Drax Pre-Con Protection, not necessarily the best scenario to judge this against. And, you know, I could just say I got unlucky. I got an advance and a Cutthroat Ambition in the same turn. That's unlucky, but it's obviously a thing that can happen. And then I got the deal her a boost, her technique boost on the same turn that I got an extra technique boost from her thing. Yeah, that's the technique boosts. The tricky thing about them is they're delayed effects, but then they're much worse because if she doesn't have an active technique, she gets extra techniques out of it. You know, anyways, I think there's a lot of interesting interplay with that, but it does lead to the scenario. So maybe Drax just still can't take Nebula, which I don't think is necessarily the worst thing ever. She's still very susceptible to being just, you know, burst down if you can do it fast enough before you draw an advance. But that's that. Space Pirates, you're awful. All right. Well, anyways, if you have any thoughts that you would like to share, please share them in the comments down below. I will consider what I'm going to do after this. I think I'll probably give Nebula another shot. Maybe just with a custom deck instead of with a Pre-Con. I mean, Pre-Con's against Expert. Like, it's an insane idea anyways to start with. It works sometimes, and sometimes it's just not going to work, and that's fine. These are Pre-Cons after all, and this is Expert difficulty. It's not really. It doesn't need to be able to handle Pre-Cons, I guess. Even though I do like to have the option to run something that's Pre-Con-ish against it. But it works sometimes, it fails sometimes, especially with 4-sided size heroes. They probably just, I think what it comes down to is these big dumb bruisers need you to put a lot of thought into their decks to be able to manage all of their weaknesses. So I can just chalk it up to that. And I might just try her again with Drax with a custom deck. I think that might be the direction I head for the next one. I probably won't forget the Milano turn 1 too. That'll help. So anyways, yes, leave comments and all those things that I said. I don't remember, but like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.